Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to today's session of our Go Digital Western Cape webinar series. My name is Robert Davids. I'm from the Digital Economy Unit at the Department of Economic Development and Tourism at the Western Cape Government, and I'll be your host for this very chilly afternoon, at least here in Cape Town. To everybody in our audience, it's really good to have all of you with us today. Thank you for taking your time and for coming to join us on this webinar. We're going to have a very exciting one lined up for you today, and we're really glad that you could join us. I hope you all are nice and warm and that you have a cup of coffee or tea or whichever you prefer to keep you company as we go through today's webinar. And then also, as you know, today our topic is cloud-based solutions for SMMEs with Amazon Web Services. So to our two presenters from Amazon Web Services, Clive Charlton and JP Horne, a warm welcome to you also, and thank you for your time and for being able to present on our webinar series today. So as I said, we'd like to just have a few minutes before we kick off with the full webinar. I'd just like to share what we refer to as our house rules. For those of you who have been with us before, you know the drill, but for members and in the audience who may be joining us for the first time, firstly, I'd just like to inform you that we are recording this webinar. The reason for the webinars is for future reference. So in case you want to go back or come back at least and review the webinar, you can do so via our website. And then also, of course, for people who weren't able to join us today, these webinars can be accessed via our Digital Economy website. I will share information on that a bit later. Then secondly, just to reiterate what I said at the beginning of the session, we kindly ask everybody in the audience to please mute your devices, so turn off your microphones, and please also turn off your video. And we just ask this as a courtesy because this will prevent any interference with the presenters when they will be sharing their screens and doing their presentations a bit later. So please, to all members in the audience, please turn off microphones and your video. So for those who haven't done so, we please ask you to do that now. Thank you for your cooperation. The third point I'd like to ask is, or inform you of, is that the way we structured these sessions is that we don't take questions during the actual presentations, but we do ask you to type any questions you have in the chat window. You'll see on the tab functions on your right, there's a little chat window. If you have a question during the course of the session, please type your questions in there. And time allowing, at the end of the presentations, I will moderate a short question and answer session with our presenters. And then lastly, for those of you who are quite active on social media, if you want to share information about this webinar or send out any tweets while it's going on, please use the hashtag GoDigitalWC, which stands for Western Cape. Okay, so those are the house rules, and we really ask that you enjoy the session with us and that you stay with us throughout the hour. So today's session, as I said, is specifically on cloud-based solutions for SMMEs with Amazon Web Services. But just to give that a bit of context in terms of the webinar series itself, this series has been launched by our department as a direct response to the COVID-19 pandemic and how our department is able to support and provide information to our business ecosystem in the Western Cape. So it's called the Go Digital Western Cape campaign. And this webinar, I think it's the 12th in our series. We started on the 30th of April. And the focus of this webinar is, or the series at least, is really to support and inform businesses within the Western Cape ecosystem about how to digitize your businesses, about digital processes, about digital systems, about opportunities that digital offers, about taking your business online, and if you're online already, how to expand that, and everything in between. This is, of course, important for business in general, in terms of digitization or going online, as people sometimes call it. but also specifically during the COVID-19 pandemic and the context that we are in, this has become even more important. So this webinar series is part of a much broader campaign by the department to support our ecosystem in the Western Cape. And yeah, it's, as I said, this is our 12th one, and we will be continuing over the next couple of weeks also. So that's just a bit of background on the series itself. But now coming to today's presentation, I don't think Amazon itself requires any particular introduction. I think Amazon is probably one of the biggest and strongest and well-known brands internationally, and many of us may know the platform very well. We know Jeff Bezos, we know of its history, we know about the value of the company, and maybe some of us who don't know that much just think Amazon is something where you can buy a book, and maybe that's what we know about it. But then it stretches into such a broad range of services in terms of its online platforms and its tools. And the other end of the scale, from the one side of the stick where you can simply buy something online, all the way to one of Amazon's flagship parts of its company, Amazon Web Services, or AWS in short. We are going to spend some time with our guests from Amazon Web Services today to understand how Amazon Web Services and how cloud technology in its specifically can be of relevance as solutions to SMMEs. Because usually when one thinks about cloud, you think about maybe big corporates or big government organizations, and you may think, yes, okay, so cloud could be used for general backup of data, for storage, for file sharing, but it's also a very powerful tool for collaboration and different ways of doing businesses. And it opens up a whole new set of opportunities to small businesses, or SMMEs for that matter, to use cloud services in ways which you may not have imagined before, because perhaps, as I said earlier, cloud's often associated with big organizations or big corporates. But today's focus, and what Clive and JP will be taking us through, is just to say how cloud services can actually be solutions for SMEs, and then also how Amazon Web Services works in this area based on their experience, based on some of their case studies in the past. So we're very pleased to have our two speakers here today. As I said, it's Clive Charlton, who's the head of solution architecture for Sub-Saharan Africa at AWS, and then also JP Horne, who manages public sector sales for AWS. So it's to Clive and JP, thank you very much for your time and all the effort that you've put in to present on this webinar today. We know you have a lot of other things on your plate and a lot of other priorities, so we are really happy and really grateful that you could take out this time to share your knowledge and your information with our business ecosystem here in the Western Cape through our Go Digital Western Cape campaign. So JP, I think you're going to be first on our agenda for today, so I will hand over to you. Thanks, JP.
Perfect. Thank you, Robert. Good morning, folks. I hope I'm audible. I thought, in the interest of where we found ourselves in these unprecedented times, just a friendly reminder: maintain your safe following distance, wear your masks. Welcome to the new world of work, right? I think with that, I'm going to take my mask off, and thank you again, Robert, I think, for the opportunity that Western Cape government have given us, as well as the team from Go Digital, yourself and Olivia. We really appreciate it, and we obviously hope to share with the team, the value proposition of how we can support SMEs in the Western Cape, but across the country as well. So that's me. We've got my colleague Clive Charlton, which I think he may have video on. Just say hi or shout out to Clive. But I'm going to jump straight into the presentation, so thank you. Great. So good morning, folks. I think we've heard the introduction in terms of the discussion here today, but I think supporting SMEs across Africa, I think is our value proposition, and then of course having a lot of SMMEs on the call today, we'd obviously look at saying how can you innovate in this concept of the new age and the new digital economy focused around cloud and cloud computing. How do we gear you as an organization for growth? How are you able to take advantages of the benefit of cloud, be able to reduce cost, innovate, ease into new markets as a growth potential for you as an organization. So as you've mentioned, our fearless leader, Jeff Bezos, started this business a good couple of decades ago. And I think when we started the business, it was governed around those three principles, as you mentioned, right? Putting our customers first. Customer obsession is what we term as our primary and main leadership principle, our number one leadership principle. Being able to invent and simplify, a big pillar of what we do in terms of how we work with our customers. And then lastly is be patient, right? So things don't happen overnight. Amazon started as an online bookstore, as many of you know, and it's evolved into a myriad of different businesses, which Clive will cover out later. But I think governed by those principles has been the reason for our success as an organization. And obviously, we want to be able to foster that kind of success with our customers, with our partners, which is the highlight of today's discussion. So without further ado, I'm going to jump straight into a bit of video.
The world is a wild and unpredictable place. And isn't that absolutely amazing? Products can catch fire overnight. A back of a napkin idea can change the world. An incurable disease can suddenly appear vulnerable. So many wonderfully improbable, never before possible breakthroughs are out there, waiting to be discovered. With Amazon Web Services and Intel, you'll be ready for anything. Ready to unlock a human genome, to safeguard our most valuable assets, to
Forgive me.
The world is a wild and unpredictable place. And isn't that absolutely amazing?
Forgive me, I'm going to skip that part if you don't mind. I think I had a line cut there. I think you get the concept, but yeah, we've got a lot to show you today, so we'll move on. In terms of our agenda, I think I'm going to hand over to Clive Charlton shortly. Clive will take us through the culture of innovation that I spoke about, and obviously that Jeff Bezos has articulated. We'll jump into Amazon in South Africa. I think a great value proposition and story around investment into the region, locally in South Africa, in Cape Town, but very much across the country and the continent. So we'll talk about that. I'll jump then into our regional investment, specifically what are those investment pillars that we've made into small, medium business within South Africa, but as broader, than what that goes. I'll hand over to Clive again. He'll take us through the growth of your business through the use of technology and how you can leverage technology to be able to essentially take you along this journey of the cloud. I want to focus then specifically around the topic of supporting small businesses, how we go about doing that within our local economy, and how we obviously empower business to be able to use innovation and our tools to do so. Between Clive and myself, we'll talk about our SMME support programs, and then we'll open up for Q&A. Okay. So organizations are thinking of moving to the cloud, right? I thought I'd start off with a couple of funnies to get understanding over there. So I think many organizations they exist with a lack of understanding of the cloud and what the value proposition that cloud can bring to their business. So you obviously get to see the little comic over there, but a lot of what we want to articulate is being able to work through that FUD, that fear, that uncertainty, and that doubt that exists within the market, and understand how our customers and partners like yourself are able to leverage the power of cloud. Secondly, lack of direction. I think many organizations have adopted an approach of cloud first, a cloud first policy. We've seen that in the UK, we've seen that in the US, we've seen it in a myriad of different countries that have taken that approach, which means if any IT or systems deployment they look at, cloud is the first option that they look to. Lack of direction is obviously quite key. I think in the South African market, organizations are now coming of age in being able to adopt cloud and the cloud first approach. We're finding many large organizations across the country in South Africa that are doing that. And I think from a government perspective, we are slowly seeing that government is also taking very much an approach to cloud, as Western Cape government have. Thirdly, I think is a lack of communication, right? So you're able to see there that, are your company moving to the cloud? No, there's a fear of heights. And I think that's the change management aspect that's associated with cloud. Customers and partners have got to understand that this is a next evolution of technology adoption within the ecosystem of our industry. The traditional model of on-premise is evolved to this concept of cloud, reduce cost, speed to market, being able to break into new areas, and obviously being able to scale to an extent where companies are not able to today, or do so at very high cost, which we'll cover later. So I think that's sort of the pillars around things that should be considered before you look at moving to the cloud and getting your customers to move to the cloud. So yeah, with that, I'm going to hand over to Clive, who will talk about the culture of our innovation.
Thanks very much, JP. Can you go to the next slide? Yeah, thank you. So we've spoken about culture in our leadership principles, and I wanted to speak a little bit about a sort of culture of innovation and what drives AWS. As you might well know, Amazon today is a $1 trillion company in terms of market capitalization, but the first book was sold from Jeff Bezos' parents' garage, pictured here. And his intention was all about creating opportunities, both within Amazon and for others to use Amazon to pursue their dreams. Next slide, please, JP.
Sure.
So it all started off with books. The bookstore selling online, but the concept behind Jeff Bezos' idea was all about technology and using the internet. And if you can go to the next slide, please, JP. And that expanded into many other businesses. I mean, today we've got drone development with Prime Air, which is busy testing in the UK. Video streaming with Prime Video, competitor to Netflix and others. A host of other businesses like Amazon Go, which I'll tell you a little bit more about in a short while. Amazon Echo, and of course, Amazon Cloud Computing in AWS. Next slide, please, Javi. Now, Amazon Go is a flagship store. The first one started in Seattle, of course. Now, this is a store with no tellers and no tills. You walk in, take what you want off the shelf, and you walk out, and your bill arrives on your phone, all paid for. Of course, you need an Amazon account, and you need to set up your phone. I had the good fortune to visit the store in Seattle, and it's a crazy feeling. It's all a little bit almost like shoplifting. You're not really sure if you've paid or not, or if you can leave the store or not. And of course, I try to trick it as well by taking things off the shelf, putting them back. But it all worked perfectly. I was happy to say. Next slide. So the culture of innovation at Amazon is based on a number of things that help us tee the organization up for success. And the first one is around customer obsession, which JP mentioned earlier as part of our leadership principles. But it's also about long-term thinking. And that's absolutely imperative. You have to be willing to be misunderstood for long periods of time. But in order to be inventive, you have to be willing to fail as well and keep trying. And everything we do around Amazon is based around these principles. Next slide, please, JP. So with customer obsession, we look at what our customer wants, and we work backwards from that. So in this slide, you see a delivery of a parcel. Customer hopefully always delighted with the delivery. And what we do is we work backwards from that. And there's some processes that we use internally in order to do that. But it's essentially working out who the customer really is and what they really want. And then everything, if you work towards those goals, is how you actually build a great product and a great business. Next slide, please, JP. So I don't know if anyone in the audience will recall this website or have happened to have visited it, but this is the first version of Amazon.com. So an illustration of being stubborn on the vision, but being flexible on the details and innovating over time. So this is long-term thinking. This is the early day of the website. But you'll see in the first line, if you explore just one thing, make it our personal notification service. And that was actually really the start of our artificial intelligence around a recommendation engine. So if you bought something, perhaps you might like this, or if someone you know bought something and you have similar interests, you might maybe we can recommend something to you. And Jeff Bezos and the team were already thinking about these things right in the early days of the online e-commerce store. Next slide, please, JP. So in order to do so, to create an organization around innovation, we need to implement certain things in order to get there. It's all very well having a vision about being innovative, but you need to create mechanisms, and I spoke about customer obsession. So some of the mechanisms we use for that is a process called working backwards. Like I mentioned, you take the who the customer is and what they want, and work backwards from that. And one of those mechanisms is what we call a press release. So we actually internally, we write a fictitious press release announcing what we think or how we would like the press announcement to be. And it sounds a lot easier than it actually is. It's a little bit of an art form. And to craft it properly really starts articulating what the business or the product needs to do. Below that, then we start writing a frequently asked questions on what we think someone might ask having read that article. And that starts fleshing out what the product does. And then you start with visualizations and that kind of thing, starting with low fidelity and working up and just continuing to build. And then in terms of architecture, there were some things in place that we put in. I'll tell you a little bit about in the slides to come. Of course, culture, and then how we organize our business. Next slide, please, JP. So this slide is a picture or trying to depict what today is the homepage of Amazon.com. Which might look like a complete mess there, but it was an early segue into what today is commonly referred to as microservices. We realized we had a monolithic application called OBDOS, which was named after the fastest point through the Amazon River. But it was becoming really unwieldy. Every time we had to make a change, there was an outage for customers online, and it just really couldn't work. So we started breaking it all apart into small little services that are independent and can iterate and move quickly on their own. And then that starts creating the flywheel of innovation. Each service can continue and move at its own pace. Next slide, please, JP. In terms of our culture, we're heavily based on what we call our leadership principles. And I'd encourage you to have a look on Google. We have 14 leadership principles. They're publicly available. And everything we do in Amazon is based around these leadership principles. So when we're thinking of creating a new business, right the way through to an individual employee's performance evaluation is assessed against the leadership principles. Now, if you look at some of those, they're intentionally conflicting. So if I take Think Big, for example, which is encouraging just everyone to think bigger, and we actively challenge each other to think bigger, versus a leadership principle of frugality. How do you balance thinking big with frugality? It's not easy, and it's intended to be conflictual, which creates a purpose of intent. You have to think things through carefully and balance, because nothing's ever so simple in life. One has to balance the different drivers in life. Next slide, please, JP. And in terms of our leadership principles, we also try to employ builders, people that are intentional about building solutions for our customers. They think long term, but they also think deep and really enjoy solving problems. And at Amazon, we like to think everyone is a builder. We experiment frequently and we embrace failures. So we use an example called, or a phrase called, failing fast. And that sounds a little bit weird, but what it's about is it's about experimentation and learning from your experiments. So nothing is ever created perfectly the first time around, but as long as you learn from your mistakes, you can innovate quickly, and you hopefully always moving in the right direction.
Agreed. I love this slide, Clive, because it talks to the concept of Lego blocks. You buy yourself a box of Lego blocks, and you be able to innovate with it. You fail fast. One Lego block doesn't fit into the other. You've got to change it up. And this is the concept of the microservices we talk about. Each block is that self-contained service that, when you string them together, create your pirate ship or your Mars lunar module that you get as part of the end result. So yeah, thank you.
Yeah, and in fact, the previous logo of AWS was Lego blocks kind of put together, which is what cloud services are all about, is providing each service as a Lego block that you can plug together to create a whole solution for yourself. And, I spoke about learning from failures. Amazon as a company is no stranger to failures. We've had a couple of our own, some fairly spectacular ones. The two images on the screen are examples of those. So the image on the left is our auction site, which was intended to compete with eBay, which didn't do very well at all. But what it did is we learned from that, and we created an online marketplace where vendors can sell their software on the AWS cloud. It's a kind of one-click deployment for software. Which is very successful now. So that was a good example of learning from our lessons. The Fire Phone, not a good example. So there was invested a large amount of money in the Fire Phone, and we realized that that wasn't going to be a success. But one of the things that was born out of that was the Amazon Echo, which also uses the Alexa voice-enabled service. Next slide, please, JP. So we often get asked, what's the difference between Amazon and Amazon Web Services? So of course we're a business within the Amazon group, being AWS, and we provide cloud services. Infrastructure as a service and software as a service, and a platform as a service, where Amazon Retail is the online store that and you see on the left a picture of one of our fulfillment stores, which is where all the goods get packaged. This is an early example, by the way. And then on the right, one of our data centers. Next slide, please, JP. So we've got another quick video about a local example called GovChat.
The journey of GovChat started with a social media platform called Mixit. Still today, probably Africa's most successful tech story. And at the Mixit platform, I was in charge of government and did quite a few successful case studies, basically trying to understand whether there was appetite for young South Africans to engage with government. And boy, were we surprised about what was coming. We saw that a lot of the issues that was coming forward was issues around unemployment, issues around access to water and electricity. But more importantly, found out that it wasn't national government issues that they were concerned about, but it was local government issues. And I knew that that was going to be a massive challenge, and then came up with this concept that I just wanted to connect citizens with government. And it's been a 4-year journey. And today, GovChat is South Africa's official engagement platform for the South African government, allowing citizens to engage with 10,000 public representatives.
The way we got involved with GovChat is very interesting. It was around about June 2019. The client came to us and said, we have a deadline, it is 10th of October, and we need to develop a way for citizens to chat using a typical WhatsApp, Facebook Messenger, one of those platforms, and plot that information onto a map. Because of the very, very tight deadlines, 2 months to develop something of that sort, was the AWS solutions provided everything that we needed.
Synthesis incorporated AWS by first engaging with the Activate program. So as a partner, we registered with the Activate program, which allows us to onboard startups or new businesses onto the AWS platform. And it starts by giving them $5,000 credit to use on the platform. So for GovChat, it was a natural choice, being a new business. They didn't have revenue coming into the business as yet. It was great for them to get $5,000 as an initial charge amount to allow them to utilize services and start experimenting on this cloud platform.
Synthesis is an amazing software company, and they've really taken this concept into something tangible. They have a pool of talent where they could really just cherry pick from an amazing team leader to developers that is taking the architecture and then just creating it and then making it something tangible. And it is a very sophisticated concept that we have taken. It's not plug and play. This is tech that's created from scratch. And so it takes a long, long time.
From the beginning, everything had to be thought about what happens when this app grows. So everything that we built cloud, as in built from the foundation up, was cloud first development. The database, the infrastructure, the security solution, the firewall, everything has been, let's go cloud native first.
What's really, really great is that just in the last 12 months, even though we have onboarded the South African government, we've already seen GovChat in 7 other African countries, Nigeria, DRC, Ghana. And so GovChat is one of those platforms that advocate for active citizenry. And we believe that once that happens, then we are able to fix government with civil society, with NGOs, with the private sector, with citizens. We can fix it all together, and we can make this country a truly better place.
AWS has been a perfect platform for GovChat because of customer obsession. So AWS will introduce GovChat through their startup programs. They've got sort of a global community where you can air your products and you can speak to a global community about your services, what you do, and it'll also help in terms of sales opportunities. So if a customer is trying to win new business, AWS will have the right solution architects and pre-sales people available to help explain the benefits of the AWS platform.
I'm just really, really grateful that there are still good people around that believe in the vision of social impact, that believe in the vision of when you have the right purpose and the right DNA and the right intention, that you can make anything happen. This is a dream come true. I must be honest. Every day I wake up and I have to pinch myself to say that, wow, this is kind of happening. And so I'm really, really just grateful.
So yeah, folks, I think as we end that slide off, I think many of you may be familiar with the social relief of distress grant that was issued by South African Social Development and South African Social Services Agency. And of course, GovTech was the platform of choice when applicants are applying for their 350 Rand, South African citizens are able to apply for their 350 Rand grant relief, which is running through the platform. Great story, great South African local, case study of a startup that has managed to be able to hit 150 plus million messages through 2 million, 2.5 million citizens across the country, with multiple millions of applications as well. So I think a great story and success story there for them as GovChat, but obviously the use of our technology and just being able to support GovChat has been a really incredible journey to date. Clive.
Yeah, thanks, JP. What a great story. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about the history of AWS in South Africa. And if you look up AWS, you'll see that we were incorporated in 2006, but this slide actually shows 2004. And that's because the original development center was created in Cape Town in 2004. What we realized as Amazon supporting the e-commerce retail site is we had development teams all over the world with data centers all over the world, which was becoming really difficult to manage. So the concept of cloud was born. And at first it was internal to Amazon. And we realized if there's a company like Amazon who needs this kind of service, there are going to be other companies around there. And the concept was just taken much larger than that. And then, of course, in 2006, we launched with EC2, one of our core services. It's actually the virtual machine, progressing all the way through to today in 2020, where we announced our first full-blown AWS region in Cape Town, which we were very pleased to announce.
Yeah, I think Clive is also very humble in that, EC2 was a product that's obviously used and developed worldwide, but it was actually crafted in Cape Town. So down the road from our offices in Gardens is essentially where this flagship product for our global enterprise organization was developed in our backyard through auspices of our development center, which has now become our global flagship product. And I think that story to come out of Cape Town in Africa, which becomes that breeding ground for this innovation and development is just something I think is very proud as a South African, as a Cape Townian. So yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks, JP. Next slide, please. So I think just in terms of the business and where we're regarded in the market by independent consultants like Gartner, who place us as the leader both in completeness of vision and the ability to execute in public cloud for the 9th consecutive year, which is fantastic. Next slide, please, JP. And the same goes for a number of different service verticals, including artificial intelligence, where you'll see we're placed in the same category in terms of completeness of vision and the ability to execute. Next slide, please, JP. So just some quick ones. A lot of industry leaders that are using AWS, from companies like Coca-Cola, Pfizer, Halliburton, Samsung, to name a few. Next slide. And then, of course, Sub-Saharan Africa, where you'll see some more familiar names like Showmax and DSTV, ABSA, Time Bank, also thousands of customers in Sub-Saharan Africa. Next slide, please, JP.
My name is Horne Hendricks. I'm the Managing Director of Righty Pharmacy. The Righty Pharmacy is an innovation startup that comes for the last 3.5 years. We are focusing on pioneering disruptive solutions and technology in the primary healthcare space. The whole healthcare system is overburdened and with a lot of challenges. We've got about 43 million people that's not insured, that relies on the public health sector. And our aim is to improve access and availability of medicines, and especially for now, our programs is aligned to the Department of Health and the Gauteng Department of Health, aim to decant overburdened facilities. Just in the public sector in South Africa, there's a shortage of about 10,500 pharmacists and about double the amount of pharmacy assistants that needed just in the public healthcare space. But what we've seen is, we've done about 170,000 dispenses through the ATM now. Waiting times to collect 2 months' supplies under 3 minutes, and that includes consult with the pharmacist.
I'm Chris Nelson. I'm Driving Pharmacy, the application and support technical lead. Clive was actually able to provide us a backbone of our current ECU deployment. AWS provided us with the EC2 environment. Within it, we used quite a few functionalities. By doing this, we needed a solution which will sync data to and from our devices, which is not at any risk, whether to the patient or to us as business. We saved roughly 2 man-days per month without having to maintain physical devices, physical machines, or driving to and from any physical hosted location.
Together with the Department of Health, we're also rolling out smart lockers. We call it Collect and Go smart lockers, used in Amazon all over the world for e-commerce. We've adopted that technology into the public health space to monitor and actually enable better collection and compliance within the collection of medicine space. So currently, we're very excited. We're rolling out in 3 provinces, about 64 pickup points, I think about 350 lockers. The synchronization of data online and offline is quite key, and it's a big part of the puzzle to solving healthcare problems in the continent. That's the benefit of us working with AWS, and one of the additional benefits that's going into these rural areas to know that when you've got connectivity, the patient data and the key information and data, it's transmitted in the correct manner.
Great, thank you. Another flagship customer of ours, I think you've got to hear the story around, focus around last mile medicine dispensing across our country. Today, in terms of COVID, they've picked up the responsibility of being able to get medicine dispensing that obviously focus around underlying ailments that treat to COVID. Great organization doing some incredible stuff across the world and across Africa at the moment.
Yeah, and so relevant in the times of COVID now with remote pharmaceutical dispensing and so forth. Next slide, please, JP.
Yeah, so I'm not sure that's coming through. So AWS or Amazon's regional investments. Sorry, I missed the slide just on startups, but I think you got a sense for the startups that we support within the local South African ecosystem. I think many startups that are on this call, organizations that aspire to be able to use the technology. I think our messaging around regional investment, I think, is quite a strong and compelling case. I think Clive has mentioned to you our infrastructure region that was launched a few months ago, which talks to the ability of being able to issue a series of what we call availability zones, right, which is essentially a group or a cluster of data centers dispersed across the Western Cape at the moment. And that gives us the ability to be able to offer cloud services not only to South African customers, but to the rest of Africa. With 24 of these cloud or infrastructure regions across the world, Cape Town, South Africa being the Africa region was obviously the 23rd one that was just launched a few months ago. Significant investment, significant employment of staff and resources to support that data center infrastructure region within the province. And of course, that now is our flagship of presence of offering cloud services in country, right? Compliance with POPI, compliance with being able to reside and store data in country, which is a big requirement for government as well as many private organizations as POPI now obviously gets implemented within this next year. From an office perspective, I think we employ thousands of staff within the Cape Town and Johannesburg area. This investment obviously extends into Africa as well. So Kenya, Nairobi is a good presence for us in that area. Being able to employ staff within the economy, being able to provide jobs and economic development opportunities is obviously quite paramount in terms of that investment. So I think within the Cape Town area, which is our hub, a significant amount of staff that are then employed and being able to service and work with our customers. And that ranges from not only our Amazon Development Center, our Amazon Support Center, our Kindle business, strangely enough, and of course our AWS sales business, which is quite phenomenal. AWS in communities, another initiative that's relevant to our infrastructure region, also employed within the context of our location. I think lastly, thirdly, an initiative that is focused around equity equivalent. I think many of you may be familiar with the DTI's program around equity equivalence. And essentially, Amazon's response to being able to invest in Black startup organizations within the country was focused around this. Investing $375 million over a 7-year period and selecting, a number of 100% Black-owned businesses and investing direct hard cash and support into those organizations to help grow entrepreneurship, to be able to help grow innovation within the local market. I think a great story around that. You may have seen it in the press, and we've just essentially gone through the first cohort of our selection of that equity equivalent partners. The program has closed in May, unfortunately, but we will go through a series of additional selection processes for these organizations over the next 7-year period. Entrepreneurship, a big focus point for us, right? A big regional investment for us. I think we all know that Cape Town has become the hub for startups and entrepreneurship. We've invested in a significant amount of startup organizations and will continue to do so. I think many organizations that may well be on this call are potential being able to get into our Amazon startup programs, as mentioned in the videos, and be able to take advantage of growing and building a business from ground up. So supporting that local economy around startup initiatives is where that investment comes to. I think the last two items I'm going to pass through quickly. Cloud skills. We have to understand that there's a big demand for cloud skills within the market, not only from organizations like yourselves, but our big enterprise customers, as well as our partner ecosystem. So a lot of development, a lot of investment that has gone into specifically around skills development through Amazon's sort of training partner initiative. And I'll touch on that again in a later slide. I think our most recent announcement that you may have seen is through making 3,000 jobs available to the South African market. And this initiative was then geared around being able to offer the customer support associate agents, allowing people in communities to be able to be employed and be able to offer support services to Amazon.com and to AWS customers while working from home during this COVID time. And being able to then obviously have the necessary infrastructure and assistance that they need to be able to do that. I think a great accolade and testament to our investment in this and being able to create jobs in this ecosystem all this time in the economy when jobs are being cut. So I think a great mechanism for being able to promote employability within the area. So I think that encompasses our portfolio of investment, multi-million rand investments, I think. But this is how serious we are about South Africa. This is how serious we are about Africa, and we'll continue to make these investments over the while.
Hi, JP. Sorry to interject.
Yes.
JP and Clive. Sorry, I'm just getting a bit conscious of our time. So we need to start wrapping up. Could I ask you perhaps to just spend the last 5 minutes or so speaking quite specifically to the kind of focus of, or not focus, application of cloud to SMEs, especially in the non-tech sector. I'm just conscious that we're going to lose our audience in a few minutes. And if you could please spend the last few minutes specifically on matters related to the SMEs. But thank you for your portfolio for AWS. Thank you. Okay.
Thank you. So I think, yeah, I mean, to that point, I think we've got a few minutes left. Obviously, I'm going to talk to, I was going to talk to some of our existing customers that are startup organizations like automated fleet solutions, but the videos are available on YouTube. You guys are welcome to get that in the deck thereafter. Another SMME organization called Azatron, focusing around local innovation and scalability, specifically in the area of IoT, public safety solutions. I think many organizations like yourselves have the ability to be able to then go and create these applications as have the team from Azatron, and focusing around the innovation. So I think just to end off on the note that you referred to, Robert, is how do you take advantage of the cloud? How do you get started? You've seen some great reference of technology and customer reference, but how do you actually go and get this going? It's a simple process of 4 easy steps. Being able to choose, the approach that best suits you, and we've got a nice guide in terms of taking you through that. Being able to make sure that your first step towards the cloud is obviously one that is geared towards your business strategy. Cost is obviously a very fundamental point, and that focus around step 3, calculating the cost and discovering how much you actually want to save through the use of technology. And then lastly is contact us. So we're here to support you. We've got a mode of solution specialists. And of course, business development people that can assist you around your journey to this. We'll obviously make the necessary links available and send that through to you so you can actually get started. I'm going to skip the video again, but I think very much just wanted to focus on talking about that value proposition to you as an organization. I think we're all familiar with the concept of the value proposition of cloud, what it has to offer, around capacity planning, around removing complicated infrastructure investments. Being able to run a myriad of existing technology platforms on the AWS cloud is obviously very, very possible as well. You're able to get a sense around focusing on an ecosystem and the value proposition around it. I'm going to skip the area, I think, of deployment and durability around our products, but you'll get a sense of obviously how durable and secure our infrastructure is. Lastly is around the platform. I'm not going to discuss it too much. I think you have seen it in some of the customer reference, which focuses around serverless and being able to use a concept of APIs, which we discussed earlier, very much a principle of building blocks within our organization. Something that every organization asks for, and I think we touched on it earlier, was around training and skills development, right? Being able to get digital online training in these COVID times. We're offering classroom-based training and a certification program based on specific roles. You'll see a quote there by Gartner that obviously references it. We've got local training partners in Talk IT and Azure and Altron, and of course, a whole myriad that then talks to that. We've got a delivery model of how you're able to get advantage of it. We've got a partner ecosystem that talks to thousands of consulting partners, many familiar companies that you're familiar with and aware of today, and has essentially the ability to be able to then go and build and innovate with you. Support programs, which is focused around AWS Activate, our startup days, and then obviously focus around Cloud Start. All of this is available online. You're able to do a search and able to get advantage of free credits, technical support, and training. I think with that, I'm just going to end off on this last 1 minute video, and then I'll close if that's okay.
The eCasi initiative works with townships to enable the residents, the businesses, the SMMEs, the education institutions to build solutions in the digital economy, to take those to their own communities, to other communities across South Africa, and why not globally as well too. So uniqueness is from the fact that it allows eCasi residents to own this program and build up. For our winners, by the way, they won the competition and they built something very quick. And again, it wasn't necessarily about the technology, but about solving a problem and creating a new solution. So thank you both.
I'm Titim Cooper, and this is my partner, Talitas Timis. We are from COSET, and COSET is the only school in our township that teaches IT. So we are really glad to have this opportunity and to be here in front of people.
We were looking at problems in our community, and we found out that small businesses in our community don't initially have that much exposure to other people. So we tried creating websites so that they could reach other people from different parts of the communities.
So AWS eCasi is not a single intervention, but rather a collection of all the AWS resources and support that's available through our various programs, such as AWS Educate and AWS Academy, which is available to university students as well as students and youths, a free program. But there's also initiatives such as AWS Activate and various startup and entrepreneurial support programs that are also available to small businesses.
Solutions such as eCasi are involved bringing technology into the township. They are going to help folks who live in the townships who can identify problems, and these are real world problems, match those with appropriate technology. It's going to be particularly relevant for SMMEs. It's going to take their businesses out to wider audiences.
Through the AWS eCasi program, we'll learn certain skills like coding in HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, and then we created the website.
So the most important thing about the AWS eCasi initiative is it's really technology skills for the community, in the community, but most importantly, delivered by the community.
Great. Thank you. And I think with 45 minutes and 40 seconds, I will hand over to you, Robert. Thank you, folks, for taking the time out to learn about how we are able to support SMEs. There's our contact details, both Clive and myself. You're welcome to reach out to us any point in time should you have questions or anything that's referenced in the slides. I believe the slides will be made available. Thank you for your time and for listening.
Okay, thank you very much, JP and Clive. That was really great to get that information on Amazon and how cloud affects businesses and also the history behind it. I'm sorry that we've run out of time. I think I'm just going to, in closing, I've got a couple of things from my side, from our team, I'd just like to share with you. JP, just perhaps to both you and Clive, just very, very briefly, in closing, some closing comments from you. So as our focus today is on cloud and the opportunities that it offers to SMEs, I was wondering the one, if a comment you just make some response on or give a response to, is if there's one piece of advice that you could give to an SME who is in the non-tech sector, put it that way, in terms of the kind of value or services that cloud can have for their businesses right now, what would that piece of advice be? And then the second question, keeping in mind the trends going into the future, whether it be COVID-19 related or just general, what would you say SMEs need to look out for in terms of the value and services that cloud can offer in future, and how they need to prep for that at the moment? So maybe those two questions to allow for some last comments from your side, and then we'll round off the session. Thank you.
Sure.
Either JP or Clive.
If I may start, and I'll hand over to Clive. I think my first piece of advice is startup. I think many organizations are, or many people or communities out there have an idea of a problem that can be solved within our country. You've been thinking about forever, you just haven't done it. My advice is startup, engage the community like AWS, like other cloud service providers, and see how they can support you in solving that particular business problem. That would be my advice. Clive?
Yeah, and I would think my comment would be speed matters. Getting to market and solving problems quickly is really important, and that's what cloud computing is all about. Is about being able to innovate and build services really quickly for the community. Part of that is also, as a startup, using the pay-as-you-go model of cloud services. So you don't have to have a large capital investment as a startup, or even an SMME. You can get going really quickly within seconds to provision infrastructure that you need. And that's how you actually create innovation, and that's how you get services to people that really need them. That example of GovChat right there is building a service really quickly for citizens that really needed it in COVID. Thanks, Robert.
All right, thank you, Clive and JP. Thank you very much. I think on that note, from our team on the side to Clive and JP, both of you from Amazon Web Services, thank you very much for a really informative session. I personally it's been an eye-opener on the history of Amazon and the work it's doing in the country. So thank you very much for your time and for the presentations. Really appreciate it. And I think on that note, I will do a quick roundup of the webinar for today. So if we can just move on for a second. There we go. So firstly, just because I'm conscious of everybody's time. So firstly, as I said earlier in the session, this is our 12th edition. Upcoming sessions in July will be focusing on online or contactless payments. We have SnapScan and a company called Sekika on that session. And then later in the month, and last week of the month, we'll be focusing on digital literacy for business, particularly SMEs and startups, because I think sometimes we underestimate what it actually takes to move into this world of digital business, especially for businesses and SMEs who are in the non-tech sector. So those are some things to be looking out for late in July, and then in August we'll announce that program shortly. So please keep your eye on your email. And then earlier in the session, there was a question about recording of this webinar. As I said in the beginning, we are recording this webinar. We'll upload a copy onto our website shortly, and on your screen now you can see examples of previous webinars, and you can visit the address right on top. And also in the chat window, we provided the link for you to view any of our past webinars, or for reference once we have finished this one. Okay, and then lastly, I think just from our side, in closing, thank you very much again to Amazon Web Services, to Clive and JP for your time and all the information you shared with us today and for your presentation. We really appreciate it. I think it was a very valuable session, and I hope our audience gained some more insight into the opportunities and the history of cloud in the country. So thanks very much to both of you. Then to our audience members, thank you for taking time out today. For our regulars, it's good to see you on our group again. Thank you for your interest and support for the Go Digital Western Cape webinar series. We hope to see you next time again. And then lastly, to our digital economy team who makes all this happen, thanks to you also. And from our side, that's us signing off. Please be safe, stay healthy, and we will see you next time around. Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thank you, folks. Bye.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Bye.